Assalamu alaikum. This is your computer science teacher, Sir Fawad Akhtar Ansari, and let's begin our next step of the Python programming. In today's class, we will study module 2 according to my course outline, and in the module 2, we will study the control structures, which are also known as the decision making structures. So we already have studied in the theory that we use the conditional statement if then else or if and if. So in the Python, we used to call conditional statement as a decision making structure, or we can also say conditional statement. So let's see how does it work. So let's see, there's a exercise 2.1 question that check if a number is positive, negative, or zero. So in this question we have got three conditions. One, we have to check the number is positive. The next condition, we have to check the number is negative, and the third condition, we have to check that the number is 0. So how do we do that? Let's make a plan of it. For example, we first take the user input, and then we will go for the if statement. So let's go to the Python in compiler. So first we take the user input. Let's check the question again. Check if a number is positive. Okay, so I take a variable and I name it number, and let's take the number integer. So I am taking it integer, and I take the keyword input because I am taking the user input, so that is why I take the keyword input. Then I type a prompt that enter a number. So now after that, what we have to do, we have to check the condition that whether the number is positive, negative, or 0. So we have got three conditions. So how do we do it? We use the if statement. For example, how do we apply it in the Python? For example, let's check that if our number is greater than 0, then we use a colon for the then statement. So we will display the prompt number is positive. Now you can see the indentation is done automatically. So print number is positive. This is it. Now let's go for the next condition, that we have to find that whether the number is negative. So let's say we go back and press else if number is less than 0, then we display the message number is negative. Now we check the third condition, either our number is 0. So how do we do this? We just go back and type else. We do the indentation with the tab button, print number is 0. This is it. So this is our condition of the question, like we have to input the number, then we go to check that whether it is a positive, negative, or 0. There is nothing else in the question. Although you can make the question solution in the alternative way. For example, you may assign a number of your choice. For example, you assign 5, you assign 7, you assign -24. So it's up to you whether you assign a value uh, and store it into the variable, or you take the user input. So in my case, I choose the user input, and now it's time to test the code. Now I click on the run button. Okay. Now there is a problem in the Python that it is a case sensitive, and we have to debug the code ourselves as well. So here it says else if. So in the Python we use elif statement, not else. So this was the bug. Now I debugged it. I use elif instead of else if. So this was the bug. I click on the run. Else I use to type colon as well. So this was the bug in my code. I debugged it. Now enter a number. For example, I enter a number 45. So it says number is positive. Okay, our test 1 is successful. Now let's do the test 2. In the test 2 we type negative number. So let's check minus 45. Okay, test 2 is successful. Now let's go for the test number 3. I input the 0, so it says number is 0. So our all 3 tests are done, and we have made our code successfully. So I hope you got the concept of the else and elif statement. I remind you again, we are not doing the entire Python course. We are just doing the Python course as per the Cambridge examination syllabus, CAIE O levels. So we will just cover the mentioned topics. Now let's try to do another practice of the question. This one is interesting. Determine if a number is even or odd. No, first we do not need to solve this because we have not done yet library routines. So this question is related with the library routine. So first we have to go through the topic of the library routine, then we can solve it. So I'm not touching that thing. Okay, check if a character is a vowel or a consonant. So this is also an interesting program. There are some built-in libraries that we can use in our code. So you may later on check the book and do the practice. Next question is also interesting. Find the largest of 3 numbers. Now I would like to take the user input. First I input all 3 numbers, then we will check using the if statement. So first let me make the logic of it. So I first take the variable number 1 and I take the user input, enter a number. Now I copy this code and paste it in the next line, and I change from number 1 to number 2. My variable has been changed, and in the prompt I make a little bit more change. So another number. Now I copy this code and paste it, and I change my user variable number 3, and let's do go with the prompt, the same prompt we use. Now I took the 3 user input. So the question is that find the largest number of the 3 numbers. So we have to compare that whether our number is greater than number 2 and number 1 is greater than number 3. So let's make it now if number 1 is greater than number 2 and number 1 is greater than number 3. So this is a logic that we first test our code, that if our number 1 is above number 2 and number 1 is above number 3, then we will print that number 1. Or for example, I just want to display my number. For example, I input 8, so I want to display the 8. So what I write here, I take number 1 variable, and then I want to print that is the largest. So what will happen, that my number will be out displayed first the number, for example 10, and the prompt will be is the largest. So for example 10 is the largest. So this is the idea of the question solution. Now next, if you want to add if statement, you may go with the if statement, otherwise I suggest you to go for the elif statement. So now it's time to check using the elif statement. So elif, we take the same logic, we just need to let me copy the entire code. So instead of number 1 we will go for the number 2, and here we will go for the number 1. So we now in this case we check number 2. Let me make it more readable, so I just enter it. So number 2 is greater than number 1 and number 2 is greater than number 3. So number 2 is checked twice. Now number 2 is the largest. Now we can go for the else as well. Else we can display, let's see what will happen if I do not use this code and I write just like this. Print number 3 is the largest. So in the question it said that find the largest number. So that's why we are going to test it. Now it's time to test the code. I click on the run button. Now I enter a number, let's suppose 34. I press enter. Now I input 65. Acha, let's do it in the sequence. Let's first test about just first test the number 1 variable. Now I small value 3 and I small take the small value 2. So 34 is the largest. Okay, number 1 is the largest. Now it's time to test variable number 2. Now I input 2 smallest and 56 is the largest and 1. So 56 is the largest. Alright, test 2 is successful. Now test 3. Now for example I input 14, then I input 56 and then I input 100. So let's see that what does it do. 100 is the largest. So our test 3 is also successful. So this is how we can use our if and elif statement. I hope you got the concept of if and elif statement. So you can practice more codes, more programs from my book. They are the solved exercises and the unsolved exercises as well. So you may go and practice with it. Yeah, I added the note that we do not have the case statement in the Python, so we just use alternative methods. For example, here we can use a different method, like let's suppose print the days, names of the days of the week based on the user input. For example, I give a option to my user that enter a number between 1 till 7 to get the day of the week. So whenever the user input the number, my day will be displayed, but it should be stored in some sort of list or an array. So this is how the case statement works in the Python. So you may do the practice of it, then you will easily understand. I'm not doing the practical of all the codes because if I do everything, then what the learners will do. So this is my suggestion that I am not typing all the codes, but I want you to type the code so you may practice more and more. So it will help you a lot. So I hope you got the concept of it. There are other programs are as well. So for example, this is a arithmetic or the calculator type of question that you input the operation, for example plus, minus, divide, multiply, and then you input your number 1 and input your number 2, and then we use the if statement that if our operation is equals to plus. So 2 times equals to is the equality operator that we used. So it means that left hand side is equal to right hand side. For example, if I input plus, so my input will be compared with this plus sign. So now next thing is, okay, this is a key if statement module 2. So all right, now next topic is the loops or the loop structure. So we will inshallah start in the next class. Thank you so much attending the class, and if you have any queries, please don't hesitate to WhatsApp me. My WhatsApp number is given in the description, and you may send me queries. Thank you so much. Take care. Allah Hafiz.